Hey, in this video, I'll be summarizing the 2013 apocalyptic film Snowpiercer*. The movie tells the story of a failed climate change experiment that causes the entire world to freeze over. As a result, all life on Earth dies, except for a few people aboard a train that travels endlessly around the world. In 2014, humanity had damaged Earth's atmosphere, leading to severe global warming. As a result, scientists attempted to fix the problem by creating an artificial cooling substance and spreading it into the air using rockets owned by Elon Musk. However, instead of reducing the heat, the substance created an ice age across the globe. As a result, almost all life on Earth perished and couldn't survive. Luckily, a genius scientist named Will built a train called Snowpiercer, equipped with an eternal engine that would continue to travel around the world on tracks Will had laid before the disaster struck. As a result, the few remaining humans on the planet now live inside this train. However, inside the train, people are separated by social class. The front cars are filled with the wealthy, the middle cars with the middle class, while the back cars are occupied by the poor and smugglers. 17 years later, we are shown guards feeding the poor with a black block resembling jelly, which is said to be rich in protein, despite its disgusting appearance. When the guards order them to line up and sit, a man named Curtis refuses to sit. The guards threaten to shoot him, so Curtis immediately obeys. Curtis then speaks to his younger friend, Edgar, telling him that he has been counting the gates because he plans to sneak out. At the same time, the guards are looking for someone skilled at playing the violin. An elderly couple steps forward and reveals that they were once members of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, but unfortunately, the guards only take the grandfather, as they only need one musician. The grandfather refuses to leave without his wife, but the guards beat the wife and drag the grandfather away.
These fucking bastards.
After that, Curtis meets a woman named Tanya and her son Timmy, and asks her to trade her protein block for Timmy. Later, as Curtis cuts the protein block, he finds a small capsule containing a message inside. Curtis immediately takes it to Gilliam, an elderly man with one arm who enjoys giving clues. Gilliam tells Curtis that the message was made by his friend, who is in the front car. Gilliam's friend is an informant who is ready to help them start a rebellion. Upon inspecting the message, it reads Nam, the name of a security expert from the prison section who is currently imprisoned in the morgue. Knowing that Nam is the person who can open all the gates, Curtis plans to find him to help with the rebellion and bring about change on the train. While everyone is asleep, a group of guards arrives with Wilford's assistant, Claude. Claude, who is not wearing a shirt, begins measuring the height of all the children, including Andy, the son of a man named Andrew. Meanwhile, Tanya secretly hides Timmy in her nightgown. However, because Timmy's nightgown smells, he starts coughing and is eventually caught. After being measured, it turns out that Timmy and Andy meet the criteria Claude is looking for. Seeing his son taken, Andrew goes into a rage and throws a shoe at Claude, causing him to bleed. As a result, Claude becomes furious and orders the guards to capture Andrew for punishment. They then wrap a chain around Andrew's neck and pull his arm through a hole in the train's wall. Instantly, Andrew screams in pain as he feels the cold air from the outside. Shortly after, Minister Mason arrives and delivers a speech to remind the lower-class people to keep quiet and obey their orders.
Head. You belong on the foot, belong to the tail.
After that, they pull Andrew's now frozen arm back inside and shatter it with a large hammer. At the same time, Gilliam approaches and asks Mason to deliver a message to Wilford, saying that he wants to speak with him. However, Mason replies that Wilford will never leave his car. In the days that follow, the poor work hard to help Curtis plan the rebellion. Curtis also discovers several chronals, small blocks of industrial waste that are flammable and often used by drug addicts. He overhears the guards talking and realizes that their weapons are useless. Curtis speculates that the guards have run out of bullets, a belief strengthened by an incident for years ago when a group of rebels fought the guards but ultimately died. Curtis is convinced that the guards were out of bullets during that incident.
They don't have bullets. You remember what Mason said?
Shooting men. Wait for the next red letter.
Meanwhile, as everyone works, a skilled artist named Bagong draws portraits of Andrew and Tanya's children, if they can have something to remember them by. One day, an alarm suddenly sounds, and everyone prepares for the rebellion. They line up in front of the guards to protest about the protein blocks. An elderly man is then captured and threatened with being shot, prompting Curtis to rush toward the guard, daring him by putting his head to the weapon. Sure enough, when the guard pulls the trigger, nothing happens. Realizing that the guards' weapons are indeed empty, they immediately attack, creating chaos in the back car. Amid the commotion, a man named Gray jumps at a large guard, kills him, and takes his keys. They then use the keys to open a prison cell made of metal compartments, where they find the person they came to free, Nam, who appears somewhat dazed due to drug addiction. With the help of a translation device, Curtis explains that he needs Nam's help to get through the doors to the next cars, and he can pay Nam with chronals. Nam considers the deal while smoking, which surprises everyone else since cigarettes have long been extinct. At the same time, a small child named Chan takes Nam's lighter, prompting Nam to playfully toss it toward his cigarette, causing everyone to scramble for it. Annoyed with Nam's antics, Curtis waits until Nam finally grabs the keys and opens another compartment, revealing his daughter, Yona. Nam then agrees to help them on the condition that both he and Yona receive chronals for each gate they open. Curtis agrees to the deal. Nam then begins fiddling with the wires on the first door. When Yona mentions that the adjacent car is empty, they quickly enter. One of them opens the window of the car, and the others are astonished to see sunlight for the first time in decades, as the outside world has been covered in ice.
All right, let's go.
After that, Nam continues to unlock the next door. Just then, Yona warns them that someone is outside, and when the door opens, they see a man named Paul, who was once a member of their group. They walk through, looking around, and realize that the place is where the protein blocks are made. Paul has been forced to work there alone, making protein blocks until he lost his sanity. Curtis then looks into the protein block production machine and is shocked to discover that the main ingredient is cockroaches. At the same time, Curtis finds another capsule with the word water written on it. Paul then informs them that there is a supply of water in the front car. Nam continues to open the next hard door while Curtis speaks with Yona, who reveals that she was born on the train. Curtis wonders if Yona is a psychic, as she seems to be able to sense the state of the gates ahead. Yona screams for them not to open the next door, but it's too late. The door opens, revealing a room full of masked men armed with axes. A fight breaks out between the masked men and the rebels, resulting in many casualties. Amid the chaos, Edgar and Curtis try to make their way through the crowd while fighting off the masked men. However, Curtis slips and is almost killed by one of them, but luckily, Edgar arrives just in time to save him. When they reach the next gate, they encounter more masked men, along with some guards who warn them that the train is about to cross a bridge. At this point, Nam spots an abandoned plane at the bottom of a ravine. As the train approaches a series of ice mounds, it shakes violently, causing everyone to be thrown off balance. Soon after, Mason and his guards arrive. As usual, he scolds the rebels for being ungrateful, despite having been given shelter and food all this time. He then plans to kill some of the rebels. Hearing this, Curtis becomes enraged and throws his axe at Mason, but his attack is blocked by the guards. At the same time, the guards simultaneously put on special masks. Yona explains that ahead is a long tunnel where the train will pass through, and the cars will become pitch black. The masks the guards will allow them to see in total darkness. As the train enters the darkness, the masked men immediately launch their attack, killing many of the rebels. Curtis then remembers that Chan has a lighter. He shouts at Chan to light it. Chan quickly lights a torch, and Andrew, along with the other rebels, charges forward with torches in hand. Gray also kills one of the guards to intimidate Mason into surrendering, but Mason remains unfazed. Gray then stabs Mason in the leg. At the same time, Curtis sees Edgar being captured by one of the guards. Curtis is torn between saving his friend or going after Mason. For the sake of the other rebels, Curtis ultimately chooses to capture Mason, while Edgar ends up being killed. Stop! After capturing Mason, Curtis orders everyone to stop fighting. One of the guards attempts to kill Curtis, but Yona immediately stabs the guard with a metal rod. Meanwhile, Tanya and Andrew interrogate Mason about the whereabouts of their children, but Mason only gives a brief response, saying that their children have been taken to Wilford. Curtis threatens to stop the water supply, but Mason laughs and reveals that they actually don't have a dedicated water supply. They have been relying solely on melting snow and ice.
Mr. Curtis Everett, get you close enough.
That night, they decide to rest, while Curtis and Gilliam stay awake to discuss their next move. Since many rebels were lost in the earlier chaos, Curtis decides to continue the journey with only a few people, while Gilliam will stay behind to look after the others.
Stop me, God.
The next day, Curtis sets off with Andrew, Tanya, Nam, Gray, and Yona while dragging the handcuffed Mason along. When they enter the next car, they find a greenhouse full of high-quality fruits and vegetables. Nam then gives a small amount of soil to Yona, as she has never touched soil in her entire life. In the next car, they come across a giant aquarium. Mason offers them sushi, explaining that the fish on the train are only served twice a year to maintain the balance of the ecosystem. Then in the next car, they find a classroom full of kindergarten children. Tanya and Andrew immediately ask the children about the whereabouts of their kids. One of the children reveals that they saw Tanya and Andrew's children being taken to a car further up the train. The kindergarten teacher then shows a propaganda video teaching the students that Wilford is their savior. The kindergarten teacher then plays an instrument and sings a song teaching the children that they will freeze and die if the train ever stops. At that moment, they pass by a location where, 15 years ago, 7 people who tried to escape were immediately covered in snow and froze to death.
Freeze and die! We'd all die!
Soon after, a man arrives with a cart full of warm eggs. The children and the rebels take the eggs to eat. Grandpa Gerald also appears and plays his violin for them. At the same time, Curtis finds a capsule inside his egg with the word blood written on it. Suddenly, the man with the eggs and the kindergarten teacher pull out weapons and start shooting at the rebels. In the attack, the kindergarten teacher shoots Andrew dead, but Gray quickly throws a knife into the teacher's neck, killing him. Mason then tries to shoot Curtis, but Curtis manages to seize his weapon. At that moment, a TV turns on, displaying CCTV footage showing that the man with the eggs has killed all the rebels, and a guard named Franco is seen shooting Gilliam. Curtis, witnessing the incident, takes his revenge by shooting Mason multiple times in the head. Curtis, Nam, Yona, Gray, and Tanya continue their journey to the next car, where they see the wealthy enjoying healthcare services, beauty salons, and other luxurious amenities. At the same time, Franco from the opposite car opens fire, and Curtis engages in a shootout with him. During the gunfight, snowflakes entered through the cracks in the glass, which Nam believed was a clue. Curtis and the others continued moving forward, hiding in a car filled with saunas. Franco and the other guards chased after them, and Gray then jumped out to attack the guards, stabbing Franco in the shoulder. Curtis came out with his weapon, but his shot missed due to the smoke filling the room. Tanya then attempted to attack Franco, but Franco easily killed her. Curtis finally gathered the courage to duel against Franco. When Franco managed to knock Curtis down and was about to kill him, Gray suddenly appeared and tried to stop Franco. However, Franco fought back and stabbed Gray in the chest, killing him. Franco then found Nam hiding while holding one of the passengers hostage. They engaged in a fight, and Nam managed to knock Franco down and began choking him. Yona arrived with a knife, intending to kill Franco, but Nam stopped her, not wanting his daughter to become a killer. Curtis then grabbed the knife and stabbed Franco. After that, Curtis, Nam, and Yona continued their journey to the next car, which was filled with a lavish party, alcohol, and luxury. Nam and Yona took the opportunity to steal some drugs and alcohol, and then they walked past the control room and arrived at the door to Wilford's room, the frontmost car. Curtis asked Nam to open the door, but Nam demanded more chronal, which made Curtis increasingly angry because Nam kept consuming drugs. Curtis, losing his patience, finally snapped, but Nam calmed him down by offering Curtis the last cigarette in the world, while recounting how, in the early days aboard the train, the poor had resorted to cannibalism. Curtis admitted that he had once killed a mother and nearly ate Edgar as a baby until Gilliam had come forward and offered his arm instead. That event stopped the people from killing each other, and afterward, the guards began distributing protein blocks. Nam then revealed the reason why he was asking Curtis for so many chronals. He wanted to make a chronal bomb to blow open the exit door. He believed the weather outside was starting to improve, as evidenced by the wreckage of a plane at the bottom of the ravine, which had previously been covered in snow and was now starting to become visible. Additionally, the snowflakes they had seen earlier indicated a drop in temperature, suggesting that the snow was beginning to melt, and the world might be habitable for humans again. Despite Nam's claims being supported by various signs, Curtis remained skeptical, believing that Nam was just hallucinating from inhaling too many chronals. Shortly afterward, the door opened and Wilford's assistant, Claude, suddenly shot Nam and took the chronal bomb from him. Claude then informed Curtis that Wilford wanted to invite him to dinner. As Curtis entered the room, Wilford revealed that Curtis was the first person from the back car to make it into his room. Wilford then spoke about the importance of ecological balance, but because natural selection was too slow, years ago he had made plans with Gilliam. It turns out that Wilford and Gilliam knew each other and had orchestrated a fake revolution to reduce the population, with Gilliam deliberately setting up Curtis's rebellion through the red paper messages. By having the rebellion, Wilford was able to order his officers to kill 74% of the passengers in the back cars.
Last thing for us to do. Hold on. Your people.
Meanwhile, Yona and Nam wake up and have to fight off the partygoers who attack them because Nam had previously stolen some items. To hold them off, Nam blocks the bridge while telling Yona to blow up the exit door. Inside the locomotive, Wilford offers Curtis a capsule-labeled train. Wilford explains that he wants Curtis to replace him as the leader as per Gilliam's wishes. Outside, Franco, who has regained consciousness, attempts to attack Nam and Yona, but Yona successfully kills Claude and retrieves her chronal. Yona then enters the room to pull Curtis out, but by that time, Curtis has already been influenced by Wilford. Yona proceeds to grab a fork and pry up the floor tiles, where she discovers Timmy, who has been turned into a slave to operate the machinery. Wilford explains that they have run out of spare parts for years, so he uses children with the right body size as replacements for the spare parts. Hearing this, Curtis becomes enraged and beats Wilford. Curtis then holds the machine's gears with his own hands and hands the match to Yona. Meanwhile, Nam succeeds in killing Franco. Yona finally lights the chronal bomb to blow up the exit. Curtis quickly pulls his hand away and saves Timmy just before the explosion occurs. The blast triggers a snow avalanche, destroying the train and causing it to derail, eventually coming to a stop. Soon after, Timmy and Yona wake up inside a car surrounded by flames and filled with corpses. The two of them exit the train and spot a polar bear, a sign that they won't die from the cold. They realize that there is life outside the train, and the film ends. Alright guys, that was the recap of Snowpiercer. I hope you enjoyed the storyline I created. Apologies if there were any mistakes along the way. See you in the next video.